Hello, I'm ArchieLuxury and welcome to the program Fuckers. We're in my Explorer 2 on a NATO today, fuckers. And Barry McCombre has asked me, "Hi Archie, in the theme of pay for play, I enclose a Christmas donation. I am considering a modern Tudor as my next buy. I've got a green 116610 LV green sub. I like the look of the Tudor Grand Tourer and the Tudor Black Bay. Can you make a video outlining the history of the Tudor brand, explain the tie-in with Rolex and the modern movements?" Okay, and he's also asking, can we also give your opinion on the Grand Tourer and the Black Bay? Okay, very nice there. That's from Barry. I'm going to make a couple videos, Barry. It's such a huge topic, and I haven't really spoken about Tudor much, but it's a good idea. Your email to me has prompted me. So Tudor, who is Tudor? Well, it's part of the Rolex group, and Tudor itself there was founded in 1946. So put that in perspective. Hans Wilsdorf founded Rolex in 1905, and it's Hans Wilsdorf was really, he came to England and he was a businessman who wanted to establish a business in watchmaking, and he eventually moved to Geneva. And look, as far as it does go there, Tudor was a brand that came out in 1946, so he had already developed the Rolex brand name. And Hans Wilsdorf himself, he really loved England. He was very much, even though he may not have been born there, he was very much an Englishman, and he named Tudor after the Tudor period of history in England. And he even chose the little Tudor rose, a symbol of English patriotism, as the emblem for the watch. And Tudor itself there, Tudor's had such a long history. It was basically a range of watches to be sold by Rolex agents. The same reliability, dependability as Rolex at a cheaper price. And Tudor itself there, they used a generic ETA movement in their pieces instead of the Rolex movement. So this was a lesser cost movement. Now, some Tudors, some of the really early Tudors actually did use Rolex movements in them. But as time progressed, Tudor is known to use ETA, that's the famous maker who makes movements, Valjoux, ETA, they make movements, they're owned by the Swatch Group now, but they make movements for all sorts of manufacturers. And Tudor basically had these two product lines. The interesting thing with Tudor is they often used Rolex cases, and they put in the ETA movement. So you were getting a piece which had the high-end design and ruggedness of a Rolex at a much cheaper price. Tudor also, the interesting thing with Tudor is Rolex did use gold capping and gold plating at certain time periods. Tudor tended to use a lot more gold plating than Rolex. Tudor also, the interesting thing you find is that when Rolex changed to sapphire, Tudor played catch up, and one could almost argue that the leftover bits were being pushed into Tudor to get rid of that excess stock without devaluing the Rolex brand itself there. So Tudor's a really, really interesting brand. It's So basically, it's a more affordable Rolex. And I live in Brisbane, Australia. In Brisbane, we actually sold more Tudor. We were the Tudor capital of the world. I've heard it said that Brisbane was, we outsold Rolex, whereas most places they would outsell Tudor. But Tudors themselves there, some people call them a poor man's Rolex, if there is such a thing, but in all honesty, Tudors have become extremely collectible. The Tudor Submariners, I remember buying these second-hand for next to nothing, 200, 300 bucks. They are now very, very plastic Tudor Submariners and snowflake hands and different things. So collectible, highly prized, very, very valuable itself there. And I've really loved Tudor. I think Tudor is a great brand, and I really love the products they produce. Obviously, Rolex it's a bit like, how would you compare it? It's a bit like Volkswagen. The leading technology goes into the Audi class of car. Then, when the new technology comes out, that seeps down to Volkswagen level. Then, once Volkswagen's finished with it, it goes to Skoda. So they've sort of got a planned step. And Tudor is very similar to that business model. Tudor themselves there, they've had some really cool pieces. They had the Monte Carlo. They had a bit more creative freedom than Rolex. Rolex tended to be very staunch conservative, whereas Tudor had some really interesting pieces in the 70s. They had their Submariners, of course. Tudor also had the ladies Submariner and Tudor Submariner for ladies. Tudor, you know, it's one of these brands there. I think Rolex themselves was always cautious not to have Tudor eat into Rolex sales. So they've had to be very careful. Tudor themselves, they're very popular in Australia, and they actually left America. They pulled out of America in 2004, and they came back in 2013. And I've got to say, the 90s wasn't really a good time for Tudor. Tudor had actually sponsored Tiger Woods with the Tiger Woods chronograph. They had those very loud dials, yellow dial, red dial, some very loud dials. But they also, their watches in the 90s, they had Hydronaut, that was sort of replacing the Submariner. They had some really fucking ugly watches there. They weren't cool. They were different. Tudor was trying to establish its own identity, and I think they really fucked up the business model, personally. That's my view. What Tudor has done is they've bounced back with a vengeance. They no longer push the Rolex Tudor name. They now just push Tudor as the brand itself. And they had a tie-in with Ducati and Porsche. So those are some top-end motoring names. And they brought in a range of retro watches. They brought in the Tudor Monte Carlo was reissued, which is just a stunning piece. They sort of modernized the size and things like that. The Black Bay Submariner is just, these are sexy fucking pieces. I tell you this now. Compare that to the Tudors of the 90s, which were, they were quality watches, but they were just fucking, they just weren't appealing. And they've given Tudor this retro twist, and I think they've got the formula so right. They've got the formula so right. And I've always said I'd much rather have a Tudor than a Tag Heuer. I think Tudor is a better brand than Tag Heuer, in my opinion. Tudor itself there, I think, you know, as I've said there, with those retro models they've reintroduced, I think that's hit the nail on the head. They've gone for the hipster market, younger, more trendy market, and then they will hopefully slide into a Rolex down the track. So it is a very interesting way Tudor has gone. I absolutely love the brand. I think Tudor is a great brand, great history, great tie-in. They are a really, really good brand of watch to have. And I think for any young person there, or anyone for that matter, I'd love a Tudor. I've owned recently I had a Monte Carlo, which I adored. I sold that to my friend Mark. I was just clearing some debt, and otherwise I wouldn't have got rid of it. I would have kept it. But Tudor itself, I think you'd have to give Tudor the tick of approval. ArchieLuxury gives Tudor the tick of approval. I'm ArchieLuxury. Tell me what you fuckers think of Tudor. See you later, fuckers!